Am I the a-hole for assuming my baby could come to a Super Bowl party? Wife and I, late 20s, got invited to a Super Bowl party yesterday. We have a 15-month-old. I assumed with the invite our kid was invited too. It was a text invite saying this is happening at this time and this place, no other details. In my history of going to Super Bowl parties, they've always been family friendly, so I didn't think twice about bringing my kids to my buddy's house. We are on the West Coast and it's over by 8, so it's a day thing and not really a late night. Apparently, my kid was not invited and my buddy who hosted wasn't happy he was brought over. He brought me into another room, and we had a discussion asking me to leave that turned into an argument, and we left. He never mentioned no kids, but am I the a-hole for assuming he could come?
Am I the a-hole for demanding my house guest pay me for what she drank? I, 29F, was asked by a friend, 27F, that I went to university with, if she could stay a few days at my place on her vacation. She came a couple days ago and also brought her sister, 31F, which was fine with me. Her sister declined going out for dinner with us and wanted to stay in, that was fine, and we went to go eat. Well, turns out her sister is a recovering alcoholic and wasn't coping that well, being in a different place. We come home a few hours later and I found out she got drunk and raided my liquor cabinet for what she could find. She ended up drinking my very expensive gin, $300, that was given to me by my dad. It's not something I ever would have offered guests. When she woke up the next morning, I told her that she needed to pay me for it. I didn't even open it. She started freaking out saying it was a mistake and that she couldn't afford the rest of her trip if that's what it really costs. I told her that she technically stole it from me and that she needed to pay me for it. My friend from uni says that her sister is struggling in recovery, but they really can't afford to compensate me without it ruining their trip. I asked them to leave, and they were both very upset about it. While I do understand that it was a moment of weakness, I still think she needs to pay me for it. If she broke it by accident, that would be a different story. Am I the a-hole for wanting her to give me the money for it?
Am I the a-hole for asking my sister-in-law to stop spoiling my kids with money? My 30M sister-in-law, 32F, is an unmarried, single woman who spends most of her money on trips and on her nieces and nephews. While I don't have any problem with what she does with her money or who she spends it on, her act of giving money to my kids is ruining them. They are now calling our family poor because of our financial situation. I don't want my kids to develop spoiled behaviors, so I asked my sister-in-law to go easy with the money, which she has. But my wife thinks that I shouldn't have said anything to her sister because the money she gives our kids does help them, and they weren't spoiled because they usually save it up to buy their needs like school supplies or other needs we sometimes struggle to afford. I argued that I don't want them to be constantly dependent on their aunt, because even though we are family, she is still just their aunt and not a parent. But we keep going back to the same topic about how I took away our kids' gifts and money that were helping them. According to my wife, this is her sister's indirect way of giving us financial aid, as we're not asking her, but I still think that she shouldn't be doing it, and our kids can also learn to adjust to the circumstances. So, am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for throwing a tantrum because my child wasn't invited to a child-free wedding? My sister is getting remarried, and she wants a very small wedding with only immediate family. Yesterday we got her wedding invitation, and to my surprise, it said that the wedding is child-free and my child isn't invited. My child is 17 years old, going 18 in about a month. By the way, my child is the only one under 18 in our family, and in the groom's family to my knowledge, so she is the only one being excluded. My family doesn't seem to like her much because she is too quiet and doesn't talk with people much. I called my sister and asked her if she is freaking serious. She said I'm sorry, but we have decided that we want a child-free wedding. I told her to just say you want my child, free wedding and get over with it because that is exactly what you are doing. We got into an argument, and she told me to stop throwing a tantrum and my child doesn't need to be included in everything. I told her that we won't be attending her wedding then, and she called me an a-hole for not supporting her. So, am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for leaving the restaurant even though my daughter-in-law hadn't finished eating? I, 58F, invited everyone in my family out for dinner at a nice restaurant for my husband's 60th birthday. I told everyone about the event a month ago. The guest list also included my daughter Sarah, 24F, and her wife Elizabeth, 28F. Elizabeth works in a demanding, stressful, but well-compensated corporate position. She does have a tendency of overworking herself. Unsurprisingly, she was late to the dinner. Sarah said Beth had cleared her schedule for the day, but there was a last-minute issue and she had to leave for work. Elizabeth made it while everyone else was already starting dessert. She apologized, gave us a fancy bottle of wine as a gift, and sat down. We were all done and ready to go, but Elizabeth hadn't fully eaten yet. It was getting late, so people started leaving. My husband and I also decided to leave. We didn't wait for Elizabeth to finish her dinner. The next day I got a call from Sarah saying it was not okay for us to just leave them by themselves like that. I explained that it was getting late, but she insists we should have stayed. I may be an a-hole for saying maybe she needs to take off her rose-colored glasses about Elizabeth. She got upset and hung up the phone. Was I an a-hole? Am I the a-hole for snapping at my sister-in-law after she called my son by the wrong name? My 25F, husband 25M, and I welcomed a baby boy, and we are absolutely thrilled to have him in our lives. In the name of our son, my in-laws held a small gathering with the immediate family. This was also the first time for many of them to meet our son, especially the children. We had a great time with our family, and it would have been better if it weren't for my sister-in-law, who kept calling our son by the wrong name. You see, their cousin also had a baby boy, who is 2 months older than our son, and sister-in-law kept confusing his name with our son's. In my opinion, I think she simply forgets her nephew's name. In our 3-day stay at their parents' house, she regularly called him by the wrong name. My husband and the rest of the family were only amused by it and would constantly remind her, and so did I, but I reached the point where it made me angry. When she called him by the wrong name again, I snapped. I told her that whoever she's calling is not here, and if she had paid attention, maybe she would notice that this is a different baby. After an awkward silence, she apologized and assured me that it wouldn't happen again, but the rest of the stay went by awkwardly. After returning, my husband told me that it was unwarranted, and I was mean to his sister for an honest mistake. And since I knew that she struggled with people's names, I should have given her some time. He did ask me to apologize to sister-in-law, and I will. But still, am I the a-hole here?
Am I the a-hole for saying my son is not exempt from the law just because we're related? I, 50M, have been a police officer for 21 years and have 2 kids. Recently, my son, 14M, has been acting out. His grades are tanking and he's been generally disobedient, but nothing that necessarily breaks the law. At least until last night, when he and his friends were caught stealing by another police officer. All of them were arrested. I came to the station to visit my son. He told me to let him out, but I said that he broke the law and he needs to stay behind bars until he learns his lesson. He was upset and said that I was being a bad father, but I said that he is not exempt from the law just because we're related. My wife, 44F, said this was wrong, but I'm standing my ground. So, am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for being upset with my son's teacher for taking from him to give to other students? My son is in 2nd grade and I make sure he has everything he needs for school. Recently they had a Mardi Gras parade and I bought him $80 worth of throws for the parade so he will have stuff to throw throughout the whole ride, but that wasn't the case. A girl in his class threw all her stuff at once at the beginning of the parade and the teacher made my son share his stuff with her, and she threw his stuff all at once too, leaving my son with nothing for the rest of the parade. So, I contacted the teacher and asked her why this happened, and she said with a nasty attitude, well, the girl had nothing left so I was not going to let her go without. It's not fair. I replied, but my son deserves to go without. Shouldn't she buy extra instead of taking away from other children, or am I overreacting? She could have asked for donations. I do not know how to feel about the situation because I believe in sharing, but this wasn't sharing, this was taking away from my son. My son said he didn't mind sharing, it was just that she threw all of it and left him with none.
Am I the a-hole for arguing back when my parents were disappointed I didn't name my daughter after my late aunt? My aunt passed away 2 weeks before I got pregnant. When I announced it, the expectations were on me to name my daughter Elizabeth after my aunt if she were a daughter. My aunt had Down syndrome and was so beloved and special to our family. I adored her too, but I never wanted to name my daughter Elizabeth. I have my own reasons for not liking the name Elizabeth, and my husband feels the same. We want to give our child their own name that is not any family name. I told my family during my pregnancy that if my baby was a girl, she would not be named Elizabeth, and I refused to communicate about it afterward. My daughter was born 3 weeks ago, and my family was furious when we announced her name and it wasn't Elizabeth. They believed I would change my mind between when I told them and the birth, mostly due to the fact I was aware they didn't approve. They came over on Saturday and told me I was wrong and asked how Elizabeth would feel if she knew I hadn't wanted to name my daughter after her. They told me it was an unkind thing to do and that my daughter would have been blessed to be named after her special great-aunt. I told them talking like that is one of the reasons I wouldn't want that. I said my daughter deserves her own name, and not one where she will always be told she should feel blessed or grateful to be named after my aunt. They told me I was being ridiculous and I was making excuses. I told them they were right, and I didn't need to make any to them because it was none of their business. They wouldn't let up, so I told them to leave and not to reach out unless they can accept my daughter is not Elizabeth. My family told me arguing with them was not the way to conduct myself. They argued first, but I did argue back. So am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for telling my wife it's her fault that our sons now hate and ignore their sister? My wife, 39F, and I, 44M, have 3 children, 2 boys, 15 and 14, and a girl, 12. While my wife is a great mom to all of our kids, she always had a special bond with our daughter. I wouldn't frame it as classic favoritism, but as a little bit more attention and love. The boys were always aware of this and teased their mom with it jokingly, but it was never a problem because she is a great to them too. A few weeks ago, my 14-year-old, Jim, and our daughter, Anna, fake names, had a big fight and a screaming match. It turned out that Anna took Jim's AirPods to her dance class, forgot them there, and tried to lie about it. My wife intervened and apparently took Anna's side. I wasn't there, so I don't know. My older son Alex intervened on behalf of his brother and told his mom that she is unfair. My wife doubled down and told them to frick off, and that Anna is more important. Both boys swear that she said that Anna is more important than them, while she swears that she said Anna is more important than a pair of AirPods. Alex exploded and called his mom a C-word, took his brother and left. My wife called them for hours, but they didn't answer. In the end she called me, and I picked the boys up. The relationship between our boys and their sister has been lost after this. They don't talk to her, ignore her when she approaches them, and won't tolerate her presence. Like when she enters a room, they leave. It is heartbreaking to watch. My wife tried to mend things and talk to them, but she gets aggressively ignored too. Yesterday my wife had a breakdown and started to cry after we went to bed and said that home life has been a nightmare for the last weeks. I had little sympathy and told her to suck it up because it's her fault. She called me an a-hole and cried even more.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to cover my scar and wearing a bikini as it triggered my friend? I, 24F, had a cancer scare a few years back and had a biopsy done on my upper leg. The scar has faded now, but it is still fairly noticeable and about 7 centimeters long. Thankfully, it was only a scare, and nothing came of it. For a while I was insecure about it and stopped wearing skirts or tight leggings where you could see the outline of the scar, but now I've accepted it's going to be there. I started to wear whatever and realized nobody cares about it apart from the odd question. We went to the beach yesterday as a friend group and I wore a bikini. I was excited to get a tan and my friend Anna brought her other friend Dana, 25F. I have met her before but don't know her very well. However, I do know she started a fundraiser for her mom who is fighting cancer right now. Dana's family situation is quite difficult as her dad passed away recently and her mom has stage 4 and Dana is juggling a lot. I showed up earlier than Anna and Dana, so I was already in my bikini when they joined us, and Dana was nice to me and asked about my new job. Then Anna went to say hi to the others, and Dana mentioned my scar and recognized it was a biopsy. She asked if I could wear a beach cover-up, and it was triggering to her, and insensitive of me as I know her mom is going through it right now. I said no, I'm here to get a tan and the cover-up will ruin that. Dana didn't say anything but didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. Today Anna texted me telling me Dana told her what happened, and while she agrees Dana's comment was weird, I should have given her a free pass as she is not in the best place mentally right now. I said it was really weird and no, I shouldn't. I genuinely don't think I am in the wrong and think she's being really weird about the situation, but obviously if I am in the wrong, I will apologize.